Hi, I'm Amitai. I'm just finishing my second full coding tour stop. I was here for the week in Braunschweig with BREDEX, and I have with me Alex and Zeb. And we are going to reflect on what the week was like for us. So, first of all, tell us how you set up the structure for the week and why that's what you did.
Yeah, so uh, I've known you for quite a while, and when you wrote out that you were doing this, I instantly contacted you and said, "Want to do this? Want to do this?" But I was really unsure about how something like this could work. Do you go and work with individual teams? Do you spend a whole week with one team? Is it workshops? So we had a call, and I asked you what works for you, and it turns out that what would work for you would work well for us. So a mobbing session in the morning, and then a learning hour, then lunch, and then two mobbing sessions in the afternoon. And basically, I did a Confluence post, wrote out to a few people, did some gentle prodding about, hey, this might be a good idea for you, and the teams put in when they wanted to do it, and that was it set up. And there were a few changes during the week, but that's to be expected.
How many teams was I with this week? I actually can't
Oh goodness,
be sure.
I
Something
think
like eight?
I think about eight. That sounds like a fair number looking at. And we had some people coming in who are in small teams or who their team couldn't participate because it's holiday time, and they just came in and did some mobbing with other people as well. So I think in total you worked with a lot more teams, but maybe you just didn't get it.
So my impression was that nearly everybody early in the week had not done or seen mob programming before.
Yeah, I think there's two or three teams that had done it, but of course we have about 20 teams, so um, that was definitely the case. Yeah.
And I noticed that I mostly just waited in this room for the next time slot, and then a team would come and they would bring a problem and they would set it up, and they seemed somehow more ready to mob than a team that didn't know anything about it. So how did you prepare them for what we would be doing?
I sent out in an email to basically give them a heads up about what was going on. Sort of, here's the Wikipedia definition. Here's an article about it. Here's the 3-minute video, which is I think from Woody?
That's the one I saw.
Yeah. And gave them a couple of sound bites about what the benefits of it are supposed to be, and that was basically what they got as preparation. I have a feeling that what helps is that we do have quite a come over to me, you're walking past having a conversation with someone that's not on my team. Oh, we'll stop by and let's talk about this together. So that's not mobbing, but it's a very open way of sharing problems with each other generally. So
and so people didn't have to learn that part.
Yeah.
Just the mob part. So Zeb, you visited several mobs, some with the teams that were scheduled, and some just because you were able to join. What was it like the first time you were in the mob, and what is it like now that you've done it a few times?
Well, the first time it was sort of a slow start. So we were open to trying it, but we didn't really know what to expect. That's also from a somewhat smaller team with some newer members and not very many older members. So the first one started off a bit slow, but sped up quite a bit. The second one, so I was there for 3 in total. The second one seemed to start faster and maintain that pace. And the third one had a similar characteristic to it. Mm-hmm. That may have had something to do with the fact that the first mobbing session that I was a part of was a bit earlier in the week. Mm-hmm. So no one had seen it before. It was new for all of us in that session. By the second session that I was in, it was new for none of us. And the third session was with people who had done it a couple of times before. So you could see even just from the week building on the mobbing sessions that were done earlier in the week.
Yeah, I definitely noticed now that you mention it. On Monday, I think the very first team I was with was quite large, and they didn't even have everybody they would normally have. And that was a bit slow going. I was wondering if it was me on a Monday not being so inspiring or what, but everything did seem to speed up after Monday, and it must have been just that doing it once gives you an idea what this group activity would be like. Um, what stood out that either for you or people that you've talked to about what this week was like for them? Any thoughts there?
Do you want to start?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah.
So I've been really, what's for me stood out is that when I've come in of a morning, that I've often come through this area, and just I've loved seeing teams sitting here. Even there's been a couple of mornings that they've started earlier than you, and they went up and they started, and I'm like, well, this is good. This is an effect already. There are a few teams that I know that that work on software that's not really been well designed to do things like TDD, and they haven't had that much experience with it. And that was one of the teams that that said, okay, we're going to do this thing. Let's do this thing and do it TDD. And I just think I've been so pleased that everybody's been willing to experiment. I think there'll be some people that say, nah, you know what, that's not for me, or that won't work in my context. But everyone's been open enough to say, we're gonna give this a try, and we're gonna see what it's about. And that's really nice when I get excited about these kinds of things, and I go to conferences and come back and go, this is really amazing, and everyone should try it, and they're like, Alex, you know. So it's nice to have some way of showing that, and yeah, I hope that some of the effects stick. And what we've all learned is about half lines.
Yes. Tell me how that works again, just so I know.
So if you, this is the test, thanks. So if you're on a line of code and you want somebody to enter a line after that line, then you say, for example, 120 and a half.
Right, because there probably is a line after it, and I want to get in before that one too. So line something and that.
That was really lovely. The first time that it happened, we kind of understood, like, do we tap this? And by the end of the week, people were referring to it as that.
Yes, and it's fun and it's funny and it's a quick thing to say, and everybody understands it after the second time. Yeah. Okay.
That's been my stuff.
Yeah.
So another one of the smaller effects of or benefits from programming that we've had this week was getting to know a lot more keyboard shortcuts
Yes.
for
Right.
for our IDE, as well as what kind of refactoring options are available. There were plenty of times where someone would start saying, do this, and someone else in the group would say, well, actually, if we do it this way, it'll be faster. And someone would say, okay, well, let's try it, which is also kind of an interesting trick would be the wrong word, but tactic to use to actually get started. It's not that it was necessarily new, but it really came to light, I think, this week. This is something that we could try. Let's try it, and if it doesn't work, we've spent 2 minutes on it, and we can try something else.
Work now, we all know. If it does work.
Yeah.
Exactly. And another thing that you were mentioning, Alex, that I hadn't realized that I thought was really cool was having this open space occupied pretty much the whole day. Yeah. And if this does continue, if this open space does keep getting used, I could really imagine people who are walking by and maybe would spend some time reading the newspaper, have over their coffee. They might grab their coffee, come in here, and maybe take a turn at the keyboard, maybe take a crack at helping to solve the problem. I could definitely imagine something like that.
I would really love that. That would be a cool thing. Yeah, what I noticed is, you just reminded me of something, what I noticed as well in some of the mobs, the one that we just had, sometimes the person standing at the keyboard would be like, I just didn't type for 4 minutes. But the example that we just had was, I was saying it to you while we were doing it, it's really lovely to have all of these people who know so much about the product and also about the problems, and it's the thing we were working on is big, it's been there for a long time, lots of people have worked on it, and the thing it's trying to solve is not easy either. And even though we weren't doing programming, we were solving problems and talking about problems. And that was hugely beneficial as well. And then if you do have an idea, you go, okay, let's try that now.
Right.
Instead of just sitting down and saying this is a feature or a bug meeting, and then everything remains theoretical. So
Mhm.
even for those kind of things, I found it really useful.
Yeah, we talked briefly in our last session today, the Bring Your Whole Self to Work learning hour, a little bit about meetings, not a lot, just a little bit. And it didn't exactly come up, but mob programming in some ways is an alternative to a traditional meeting. Instead of talking about what we're going to do, we try it. And then the flip side of that is if we have too many ideas, something that was really emphasized for me this week as a facilitator, I know I do this, and then I noticed last night at a meetup when I didn't have this, how much different it was. When we are mobbing and we're looking through the code and we're trying to get somewhere, we're going to pass by some places that catch our attention. And our first reaction is, I would like to do something about that. And our first reaction about that is to do it now. But when we're trying to finish an idea and we have a bunch of people together, we don't want to do every idea that we notice as we go. We'll never get anywhere. And so the small thing that I have always done that worked well when I did do it here and didn't work at the meetup last night was if there's a whiteboard or a flip chart, when somebody has this noticing and they have this idea out loud, if it's not the thing we're trying to do right now, then I simply write it down where everybody sees that I wrote it down. And that's enough to let go for a second and finish what we were doing, and we know we'll come back to it either an hour later. That was a highlight for me to realize just I do that, and now I know how crucial it is that I do that. Another highlight for me was the 2 mornings, this morning and yesterday, that I was in late, and the team was mobbing here already without me. If I had designed an acceptance test for the week, it might have been that. Yeah. And then I think another highlight was there was one day where one team brought a UI feature that was going to have to be backed by a database, and another team brought an algorithm that needed to be implemented. And in both cases, we were able to work in an iterative way that was new for them. The first one, they had a calendar scheduling thing of some kind, and their job was to figure out, given the following checkboxes and text fields, is it time to send somebody an email yet or not? And for that one, it was perfect. We should test drive this. And so they got my programming and test-driven development at the same time on the same day for the first time. And it was awesome, and it helped them solve the problem, and I heard from somebody today that they're going to do more with that. That's nice for me to hear. And then the other one was also interesting. There wasn't going to be a way to test drive that, but we had the choice: should we start on the database, providing a model of what this message is going to be, or should we start on the client UI with displaying anything at all? And I gave the slight push that we should start with the client displaying anything at all, and then displaying anything at all but that came from the message bus, and then from the message bus but from the server, and then from the server but from the database. And then, then our time was up, but you can change the message and we know it's going to go through. And I think they found this sort of a feedbacky way under the circumstances to develop the feature. And so that was enjoyable for me as well. Those were some highlights.
I remember walking in at the end of that one.
Yeah. So, gosh, would you have a visiting programmer again?
I definitely would. Can you not just stay?
I wish that I could, yes. But I've really enjoyed my visit. Yeah. Thank you both. It's been really wonderful.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks a bunch.